This is Mr. Caprit. In this video, I'm going to show you some strategies for making the chassis or body of the car. Now, yours is going to be much different than this. This is just some ideas on how to strategize. You want to do a part, and I'm going to start with the very base of your car, potentially. And if your car's rectangular, you could just use a rectangle. And you can put the dimensions in right here, hit two, whatever it is, and then hit tab and put what the other dimension is. If you ever mess that up, you can just double click and change dimensions. You can also use this dimension tool too. It won't let me do that because I already put that dimension on there. If you have a different shape than this, like it's angled, you might want to use this line tool instead to trace it out. So maybe the front of your car is more like this potentially. But you'll want to measure these out and get the right angle on these. So to do angles, you just touch the two lines that it's between. So maybe you know that this is at a 45 and this is at a 45. Okay, and then you would want to do something like how far back is this too? So these are just some examples. Your car might not be anything like this. All right, and then you can trim away this. So you might want to do something like that, use the trim tool. So if your car has a weirder shape, just start with the line tool and trace out the shape, but make sure you're dimensioning things. Any cutouts that you want to do, it's easiest if you do them right here, right now. You can go back and do those later, but you're going to have, almost everybody's going to have a slot for the motor mount to slide on. This, you definitely want it to be about 0.15. That is something you do want to copy right now. How far it is from the outside of the car, you need to measure that on your drawing. That's critical to get that right so that your motor pulley lines up well with the back pulley, the pulley on the rear axle or front axle if you're doing front wheel drive. So you might need to change this number. That looks probably way too close. Don't use 0.25 because I don't know if that's right. And then you also want to figure out the length of it too, however long you want to make it. Any other cuts that you want to make in here, it's best if you do it right at this time. It's easiest. Maybe you got a polka dot pattern kind of thing going on. I don't know, it's up to you. Maybe you want to do some polygon, for instance. That's kind of fun to do. And you can put how many sides the polygon is. So you can do an octagon. You could do trace out whatever shape you wanted to put on here if you want to do something weird. So it's best if you do that right at this point because it ends up being less extrusions. It ends up being just one instead of having to do a bunch of cuts. Now, when you extrude this, you need to point out what you want to extrude because you have multiple shapes, so the computer doesn't know what you want to extrude. If you're having problems getting it to extrude, you might have an open shape, like where this line didn't meet that line. You can't have an open shape. So the thinnest you can do this is a 1/16. The most you can do it is an 1/8. Okay. And if you did want to go back and cut something into it at this point, you could go back and do a new sketch and say, okay, or you could have done this instead of doing all these beforehand, but And then remember, you're going to have to choose the shape that you want to extrude since there's multiple shapes. The computer doesn't know which one you want to extrude. Boom. Okay. One thing you guys will all have is your, I'm trying to think of what your axle goes through, the piece that comes up or goes down that your axle is going to go through. Now it's up to you to dimension these. Remember, you can dimension tool, you can dimension the thickness. You could have done this as you put them on there or do it after the fact like I did. You need to do how wide it is. I'm just going to do one of these. And these need to line up with each other. So you definitely want to do, make sure, for instance, down here when you do this one, everything's the same, and make sure this is definitely the same as that. Otherwise, things won't line up. Okay, can finish that. Extrude these. So this is what your axle is going to go through, is something like this. You could do a different shape than this too. You could also draw it from the side and extrude it inwards too. Yeah. That might be too much. Oh yeah, that's a lot. So don't do that much if I were you, unless that's what your hand sketch has. And then you need to obviously make a hole. Come on. You need to make a hole for the axle. We could do this on just one side. And then make sure you put this in the center. Nope, didn't like that, huh? So whatever this overall width is, divide it by 2. And then make sure you figure out placement this way too. You would do the same thing on this one as well. I'm just going to show you one of these axle supports. And then what you want to do is extrude and do a cut. I don't know why this computer is so slow. A little frustrating. Cut, and then you want to pull it so it goes through both sides. Then you know it definitely lines up. And you'd want to do the same thing here. You probably could do that at the same time actually as you do the other one. You also want to put text on here, your car number somewhere as well. And just like you've done on other parts, it's the same process. You might want to make this bigger so you can see it. And you can either cut it into there or raise it by about 0.02 normally shows up pretty well. You could raise it more than that if you wanted to, but come on, computer. Also want to color your car in like we always do. And then once you're done, remember to save this into the H drive. Make sure in your H drive and you're saving it into your folder that you created specifically for the solar car, and make sure you're putting your team number on there like always, and a good description. And good description means like chassis, for instance, or car body. Up to you, but it should make sense. Don't put random things here. All right, hope this helps. Let me know if you have any more questions.